Hello! In today's video, I wanted to take the time to share a model for financial decision making that I think is extremely helpful when doing retirement planning and also when evaluating when and why to use certain financial tools or products or strategies. And finally, how to best evaluate those strategies over time to determine whether or not they're working or whether or not they're worth continuing to use. So what we have here on this screenshot is 4 categories of financial tools. And you really could take any kind of financial strategy or account or product and say that the primary purpose of it is one of the 4 tools that's listed. And so we have in our first column liquidity. In our second column we have income, then we have growth, and we have protection. Now let's talk about these individually. Let's talk first about liquidity. The first row indicates the primary source that you're going to find these tools. So liquidity tools are mostly found in banks and savings institutions. And then if we want to look at an example of the tool, we could look in the very bottom row. So for example, a savings account. So this is a financial tool, and the primary purpose of a savings account is liquidity. You'll notice that for each financial tool there's a plus sign and a minus sign. So it'd be the pros or the positives, and the minus would be the trade-offs, the things that we have to give up. So a liquidity tool is something that's liquid, and liquidity is simply I can get the money when I need it, and I don't have to pay any costs or penalties or fees. That's the positive. That's why we use liquidity tools. By the negative side of the equation is, especially in the current interest rate environment, liquidity tools like savings accounts or checking accounts or money market accounts are going to lack growth. They're going to lack the ability to keep up with inflation over time. So if we use a liquidity tool, we do it because we want or need liquidity, and we're willing to give up the fact that that asset's going to grow over time, because ultimately we decide there really aren't that many other options for me to get to my money right away without any fees unless we use a liquidity tool. Now, the second priority in retirement planning, and one of the tools or strategies, is income. It's guaranteed income or predictable income. These are generally going to be created by or produced by insurance companies. Now, you'll notice there's a plus sign there, which means that sometimes you can have investment companies that have the ability to create predictable income. But if you're looking at guaranteed income, then it's going to be created through an insurance company. And some examples of predictable or guaranteed income: on the guaranteed side, there are certain kinds of annuities that have income riders that can create predictable income or guaranteed income for a person's life. Another example of what you would call predictable income, I put as an example, is a non-publicly traded REIT, or real estate investment trust. I'll do a separate video on that particular tool and how it fits into this category of income. What is the plus of tools in the income column? Well, they can create predictable or guaranteed income that you can't outlive, that you can't destroy. What is the negative of tools that are used to create predictable or guaranteed income? Well, there is both a lack of liquidity to get the money, to get full access to and withdraw all the money that's used to create the income. And once the income has started or been activated, generally speaking, that account value is not going to be growing significantly or even at all. But why do we choose income options? Because primarily we want predictable or guaranteed income that we can't outlive, and we're willing to give up for that portion the ability to have the funds be liquid fully or have the account balance grow over time. Fourth, we have tools that are dedicated primarily to growth, and this is produced by companies generally in the investment field. Investment companies, examples of those could be securities, stocks, mutual funds, just examples, not an exhaustive list. Why is growth used even in the age of retirement and retirement planning? Well, primarily because of inflation. We've got to be able to keep up with the fact that our money is losing power, purchasing power, over the years as inflation eats into that purchasing power. So why are growth assets used? From the positive standpoint, these categories and these tools and these strategies have the highest growth potential of any other option. But they have a drawback. There is a lack of protection, a lack of a guarantee that you couldn't lose the money that you put in or some portion of the money that you put in. And so that's our third tool. It's growth. And then our final or fourth tool is protection. Protection is, once again, produced primarily by insurance companies. And we should say that this belongs here in this row here. An example of a tool for protection might be a fixed indexed annuity that doesn't have an income rider. It's just used as a way to protect from losing any money from year to year to year. Not the only tool, but one example of a tool. Why would you choose the protection column in order to safely grow money versus the growth category that lacks the protection? Well, primarily because you want to protect yourself from loss. And if you look at the negative side of the equation of protection options, they generally are going to lack liquidity, the availability of all of the funds to withdraw all the funds without any kind of a cost or penalty or a fee. So really, you could say these are the primary four tools that are available in the tool belt of retirement planning. In the same way that you've got different kinds of tools that you use to construct any kind of a project. You've got the use of hammers, you've got the use of saws, you've got the use of screwdrivers, you've got the use of, and you fill in the blank. Is any one tool better than another tool? Well, it's kind of a silly question because you'd say, well, it depends on what you're using the tool for. I'm not going to use a hammer in order to, cut a board in half. I'm not going to use a screwdriver to put a nail into the wall. And so, are there good tools and bad tools? No, they're just appropriate uses of tools and inappropriate uses of tools, in the same way that each of the strategies or the four primary tools that you have access to have primary appropriate uses and trade-offs, something we've got to give up in order to use it. So if I take a hammer and I use it to pound in a nail, I'm happy. I don't begrudge the fact that a hammer wasn't able to separate my boards in half. I just simply know that I've got a different tool in my tool belt that's designed for that. And so this gives us a basic overview and a kind of a decision-making understanding or grid of the different tools that are available and what the positives and the trade-offs are when using these tools.